right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Patriots First and Goal. I am Alec Shane here breaking down the AFC-NFC divisional round, some interesting narratives and debates going around the National Football League, and some new faces and some old faces that become new faces in the Patriots coaching staff. A lot to get to, especially considering the fact the Patriots have been playing golf for like a month now, but that's okay. We're still at it. Alec Shane and Rich Hill are still working hard, grinding away. Rich, how was your divisional round weekend?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, okay, I feel like this might be a controversial take. I thought it was a pretty good weekend. Like, obviously, I wanted the Texans to beat the Chiefs. We'll wait to break this down on first down. But in general, you got an upset, finally, which I thought was a great thing. We saw a couple really contested battles, and we have what is, in my mind, the play of the postseason so far, which we'll break down on first down. But Alec, how was your divisional round?
It was good. I'm going to go and harsh your mellow and think overall, I think that the Bills-Ravens game was awesome. But other than that, I was not overly ecstatic about any of the other games because the teams that I wanted to win mostly didn't win, which always kind of dampened it a little bit. I was really sad for the Lions. Let's get into it, Rich Hill. First and goal, divisional round. This used to be when the Patriots season started. We were all kind of waiting around for divisional round, and they went 12-4 and hosted a game. No longer the case. That's now the Chiefs' job. So let's start with that Chiefs game. The Chiefs in 2024, Rich, are giving me very, very strong 2018 Patriots vibes.
I agree.
Not a great team. Just kind of fumbled their way to a couple of victories, kind of getting hot at the right time. They're good enough to stick around and wait for teams to make mistakes, and then they don't make the mistakes. And it's a very boring, uninspired way to win games that nobody outside of Kansas City wants to see. But as a New England Patriots fan who lived this, I can at least appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the 2018 Patriots is exactly what it is, where nobody wanted this. The Patriots didn't want it. It was one of the most disappointing, uninspired years, and where they and the Chiefs this year are committing the cardinal sin of being boring. Right? You think of every other team in this postseason, there's something exciting about them. There's some sort of a play that caught your attention. There's some sort of a player that caught your attention. We're talking about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen in one game. You have Jaden Daniels with the Commanders. You have the Lions with their record-setting offense, which I think has been an understated narrative this entire year, is that they've had like a top 5 offense from the past 25 years. They were historic levels of good with Detroit. You have the Rams that obviously always have a fantastic defensive front. You have the Eagles, where Saquon Barkley is putting together a career year. With the Chiefs, I don't know if anyone can remember a play from the Chiefs from this year outside of Kansas City. They have been forgettable, and that, to me, is the biggest cardinal sin for just watching playoff football.
No, it is. I mean, it's tough. I feel like if you're not a Chiefs fan, you probably haven't watched that much Chiefs football. I mean, how much non-Patriots football did you watch this year, Rich Hill? I didn't watch that much non-Pats football. So a lot of people are seeing the Chiefs for the first time or the first of a few times, and this is the product they're getting. And it seems like we're barreling down towards a rematch of last year's Super Bowl, which no one really wants to see. I will say, though, Rich, I'll say in the AFC, amazing game between the Bills and the Ravens, exactly what I expected it to be. I think obviously the narrative is that the Bills won and Lamar couldn't get it done again, but that's not on him. I mean, they were basically a drop 2-point conversion away. I'd like to hope for most people he brushed off some of the chokes in the big game. He didn't have a great game, great first half at least, but he turned it around. As somebody who was kind of rooting for one team over the other with the better chance of beating the Chiefs, were you happy with the result with the Bills, or were you hoping the Ravens won because you thought the Ravens had a better chance to beat the Chiefs?
Honestly, we were talking about this in our group chat beforehand. I think that the Bills have a better chance of going into Arrowhead and knocking off the Chiefs. I think what this also really shows is the disproportionate advantage that the number 1 overall seed gets within the playoffs now that they've expanded it. That there's not 2 teams getting a bye, only 1 team. That advantage is preposterous. I think the Ravens are a good team. I think that they played very sloppily this game against the Bills. Lamar had his fumble. He also had his interception there. That drop from Andrews. They did not play they didn't play well. They made mistakes. On the other side, the Bills, they did barely enough to get by, right? I mean, you look up and down that roster and their performance. they're pretty lucky. They were pretty lucky to pull that one out. But that said, when I say who's going to win in the game, I think Josh Allen has been, number 2 quarterback in the league to Lamar Jackson. I think that he'll give them a chance in any game to pull it off. I think that they were able to kind of shake off their bad game here against the Ravens. And I know that the Chiefs seem to have had the Bills numbers in the postseasons in years past, but the Bills seem to win in the regular season. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they were able to pull it off. Whereas I feel like the Ravens just aren't able to be the Chiefs regardless of when the game takes place.
Yeah, I mean, look, and we talked about it just a little while ago, is, the Chiefs are very similar to the Patriots in that they don't make mistakes of their own, and they're able to just kind of hang around and wait for you to make mistakes and then capitalize on them. It's what good, disciplined teams do. And I think if both of these teams, Bills and Ravens, play the way they did last week against the Chiefs, it's going to be a pretty easy victory for the Chiefs. I have to step it up again. Maybe they shook some rust off. Maybe they got some confidence. But I'm glad the Bills won because Bills they're my AFC pick Super Bowl, really hoping they make it in there. Flipping gears, though, my NFC pick unfortunately lost an absolute heartbreaker, not by score perspective in terms of just the city of Detroit, what the kind of season they had, the expectations they had. 45 points they gave up to Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders. Good for Jaden Daniels. What an amazing story that is. I mean, this was a rebuild year for the Washington Commanders, and they are one game away from the Super Bowl. It's really cool to see in that perspective. But it also set up a fairly mediocre Washington-Philly for the third time NFC championship that I don't think anybody's overly stoked to see.
Okay. I'm going to challenge that because I feel like divisional games are always good. Doesn't matter what the quality of play is. If you told me that, I'm obviously not saying that this is Steelers-Ravens level, but Ravens-Bengals, you put Patriots-Bills, and there's going to be some level of excitement because weird things can happen when it's a divisional matchup, like what we're getting here. And you have a situation where Jaden Daniels might be the best quarterback on the field. Like Jalen Hurts is dealing with, being very banged up. Their offense goes through Saquon Barkley, who is having a Herculean year. He has been unreal for them. I wanted to mention this at the beginning. The play of the postseason so far has been his 72-yard touchdown run against the Rams, where there's just the snow. I think it was actually 78 yards. The NFL Films captured it. They made all the dramatic music behind it. You just see him storming down the field with snow and just the eruption once he hits the end zone. That is the play of the postseason so far. He's making running backs cool again. I think that he might be the best overall player on either offense. I think you just can't count out either of them, and that is why I feel like it'll be exciting. I mean, the Lions have had a generally good defense, and for Washington to put up 45 against them, this is an offense that is great. Cliff Kingsbury had this aura around him of just not being able to put together a cohesive offense for the second half of the season. That was a statement game. If they can do that to the Lions, they can do that to anyone.
So it might be an example of sometime the Patriots know this, that bye week. When's the last time the Lions got a bye week in the playoffs? There's no history. There's no here's what my predecessors did during a bye week. That might have factored in. It really might have. That rust is kind of a thing. All right, Rich, before you move on a second down here, if you had to pick, who are we going to see in the Super Bowl in early February based on these 4 teams we have left? What's your prediction here?
I think we're going to see Bills-Eagles is my prediction right here.
I hope you're right. I think we're going to see Chiefs-Eagles, but I would love to be wrong on that one.
Yeah, the one thing I'll say on this one too is Marlon Humphrey, cornerback for the Ravens, tweeted this out, and I'm like, I appreciate this to a high degree. He was just like, "Hey, Bills, or anyone from the NFC, you gotta beat the Chiefs. This has to stop. This is no reason other than me being a hater, but this has to stop." And I'm like, I appreciate that. That's like a quote. I'm like, that is so funny that an NFL player is like, I'm just being a hater right now, but you gotta stop him. And I feel like that's how everybody is feeling when they watch this postseason.
Yeah, which is a good transition to second down, Rich Hill, because a lot of people think that they are not only playing the Chiefs when they go to Kansas City, but they're also playing the refs. So let's talk about that on second down. Before we do, let's talk about Prize Picks. There's only a couple of games left in football for you to get some real money, because Prize Picks is the best place to get real money on sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all, because you just pick more or less on at least 2 players, and you get a shot to win up to $1,000 1,000 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. The big game is almost here. It is now or never, and do not miss out on these last football games of the season with Prize Picks. It's also running a special square during this NFC Championship weekend. If you want Jaden Daniels to get 1 passing yard, you get 1 square. Pretty sweet deal. Definitely worth checking that out. Buffalo, Kansas City's on Sunday. Will Pat Mahomes throw for more than 250? Will Travis Kelce have more than 69 yards? Will Josh Allen rush for more than 48 yards? You can bet it all on Prize Picks. Plus, it offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account this sports season and puts their members first. So withdrawals are all fast, safe, and secure. That means when your picks hit, you get your money in as little as 15 minutes. So sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play just $5. You don't need to win to get that $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. It offers weekly promotions, and you can lead to big payouts anytime you want. So again, download the app and use code CLNS to get the $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app and use the code CLNS and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. All right, Rich Hill, we know this conversation very well. Patriots get all the calls. Golden boy of the NFL, Tom Brady, is whining to the refs again, so he's going to get the flags. Kansas City did not deserve to win that game because Patrick Mahomes flops. The refs stink. The NFL is rigged. We know this conversation very well. We dealt with it for 20 years. What are your overall thoughts on the narrative surrounding the refereeing, which I don't think was overly good on the whole for the weekend, and the Chiefs in general?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's always so disappointing when that becomes the bigger narrative than the actual performance. And I feel like there were some very obvious plays where Patrick Mahomes was fishing for flags.
Yes.
Right. Like that is not okay. I think in the same way that the NBA has a rule against flopping, that as these rules are put into place to rightfully protect players, the players who try to take advantage of that with the fake slides or, just trying to hunt for penalties the way that he was doing should be penalized heavily for that, because that is not okay. That is against the spirit of the game. That is against safety in general, because that will just tell players just to keep going for it. Defensive players, that's not okay. It's Brady didn't do that. Brady would be frustrated at times if he felt like he should have got a call, but didn't. But he would never do those fake slides. He would get clocked overdoing that. And I feel like that is where the big difference lies. It's okay if you feel like you got roughed when it was like actually, there, or like it was a true sense of they got a finger on your face mask and that is the letter of the rule, so you should get that penalty. It's another thing to be like, I'm going to put myself in potential harm's way for the sake of trying to lure a penalty out of the other team. And that's just not okay.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Because like on one hand, I think Mahomes is actually kind of smart here. And, he's like, he knows if he flops, he's going to get a call, or if he fakes slides and someone's into him, he's going to get a call. That's 15 yards and a first down. Like there's an element of gamesmanship to that. You think back to Joe Flacco, who was the master of sending a receiver deep, underthrowing him so the receiver stopped and the DB bumped into him. Pass interference, 40-yard play. I mean, you don't necessarily have to like it, but there's nothing shady or illegal about it. What I'm hoping this narrative does is maybe they start to rejigger the rules of what roughing the passer actually is. Because you think back to that 2018 AFC Championship game, there was a play that Tom Brady had like to the face mask brushing that technically was a correct call, but it shouldn't be a correct call. There's got to be a little more nuance. Maybe let these guys play a little bit more, and maybe flopping becomes a penalty now. I'd be okay with that. I should also add this: Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Derek Jeter, Messi, Ronaldo, great players who all got a little bit of home cooking. And they got some calls. That is a universal sports thing. When really good players are out there, the refs treat them a little better because they're the face of the league. But they've earned that through amazing play. Yep. And you don't have to like it again, but that's kind of just part of the lexicon of sports. The good players are going to get a little bit of the home cooking. But again, what I think it is, the good teams and the good players are able to get the penalties in the big games because they're good at what they do. And it just so happened that this one gets ruined by a bad narrative. It's frustrating to see, but I don't think it's some situation where the refs are like deliberately giving the Chiefs anything. It's absolutely absurd that they were like legitimate NFL analysts who are like on Twitter talking about how rough the refereeing was. What's actually concerning about me, there was a play. I think it was Vontae's Perfect tweeted like, "You're going to get 15 yards anyway. I'll come out of retirement and take that guy out, make the penalty worthwhile." And like, I know he was kidding, but
that's what'll happen.
That'll happen. It's like, I'm getting 15 yards whether I touch him or injure him. So why would I not go all out on it? So in interest of player safety, it may have taken it too far to the opposite direction. So it's kind of recalibrated so that doesn't happen.
Totally. Well, I mean, in that same way, that's why for the touchbacks on the kickoffs, it's where it's like if you try to run it out, like they wanted to make kneeling it down the safer option, right? Right. They made the reward to be the safe play over taking it out. And they need to do that here for the quarterbacks because right now the reward is that you get 15 yards, which is a huge distance if you get clocked. If you try and hunt for those sorts of penalties and there's no penalty on the other side of that register for you hunting it, faking it, trying to draw it out and playing unsafely. That's where that rule has to find a new footing. But it's also one where I think for me, I mentioned that the first round bye becomes extra apparent here, where if you have your first round bye, you're the only team that gets the first round bye, and then you do get these advantages through the penalties, through the flags, that makes it almost insurmountable for teams to get by you on this way. Obviously, knowing that the Lions lost against the Commanders this year, so it's not saying that the first round bye is worth everything on it, but the Lions aren't getting the same calls that the Chiefs are getting, and that is also true.
No, it is true. And yeah, like part of it, you earn it by being one of the good teams. And it is in the NFL's best interest to protect their moneymakers. Again, I'm not homerish enough to think that Brady didn't benefit for some questionable calls in their favor. But also, I think it is because, like I said earlier in the podcast, not everyone watched every single Chiefs game. And if the only time you really see the Chiefs is when they're at home in the playoffs where things are a little amped up, I just wish that the narrative wasn't what it was because it just distracts from the entire thing. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs deserve to win that game, full stop. I don't think there's some kind of ridiculous thing happening. And maybe we're just more sensitive than others to it because, again, we were Patriots fans and we had to deal with this as well. People just get sick of the same teams winning. And when your team gets beat up a lot, you're always looking for reasons why that team won beyond they're just better than us and they win all the time. It's the refs, it's deflating footballs, it's taping sidelines, it's pumping in crowd noise, it's whatever it is besides we just got beat. And that's just the way it is. Anyway, I don't want to talk about it. It was not the Patriots anymore because there's some Patriots news coming up. Let's move on, Rich. Yeah. Third down. Coaching staff is really rounding into shape. We talked about Mike Vrabel returning to the Patriots. We're both excited about that. Another familiar face, not on the field, but Josh McDaniels is back for his 27th stint as the offensive coordinator for the Patriots. He just can't seem to find a home as a head coach. Not a good head coach, but a hell of an offensive coordinator. Some people are excited about it. Some people are not excited about it. Some people think it's going to be, if you think about what he did with Mac Jones that 1 year and Cam Newton, some people are like, he's had his chance and he failed. I'm very curious, Rich Hill, how do you fall on McDaniels hiring? Are you excited or are you kind of skeptical?
I'm okay with it. It's one of those situations where within the wider tapestry of this whole coaching search, where I would have loved for them to have a more open hire for the head coaching role, it also kind of feels like McDaniels was preordained to a degree. It's one where the pairing is good, right? I'm not going to be upset. It'd be one thing if he brought in one of the people from the Titans that very much underperformed with Vrabel, but McDaniels has his track record with New England. I would have loved to, just for the sake of seeing something different, see someone from the McVay-Shanahan tree bring it over here. But on the other side of the register, McDaniels is the top 8 offensive coordinator in the league. you're not going to get better than that, probably just coming off of the street, unless you're hiring one of those offensive coordinators to be your head coach, in which case that's likely the expectation for your offense to be better. And so unless you get Shanahan, McVay, Andy Reid, you're probably not going to get an offensive coordinator who's notably better than McDaniels. One area of potential concern for me is that we are we are hanging a lot of McDaniels' success on that one Mac Jones year, that 2021, where the Patriots ranked 6th overall in points. They also ranked 15th in yards. We are hanging our hat a lot on that year, because every other year that McDaniels was an offensive coordinator or a head coach, they had a less than stellar offense. Caveat with 2008 when it was Matt Castle, but that was obviously Randy Moss and Wes Welker, multiple Hall of Fame talents in that offense. Anyone could have done well in that one with their cupcake schedule. So we are hanging a lot on that Mac Jones rookie year as being our proof point that Josh McDaniels is going to be that guy, as opposed to it just being Tom Brady. And so where do you stand on that?
Yeah, I think that Josh McDaniels does not get enough credit for the 2020 season either, to your point. I know that wasn't a stellar year, but that was a ridiculous year of football. There was a COVID. There were no practices. Cam Newton came in late July. There was no Tom Brady. COVID happened. They had to do things on the fly. That wasn't a completely incompetent offense. There were some pretty creative plays that got called with Cam Newton. And I think that Drake May represents not Cam Newton in terms of this big, bruising 260-pound, but mobile quarterback. He can run. There's a lot of RPOs installed in that 2020 offense, and I think that there's a lot of potential with what Drake May brings to the table that McDaniels can get really creative with. I mean, I think of one like creative play the Patriots ran last year. I think it was against the Dolphins.
Like 3 years.
Yeah, there was like one that was like a pass and like a shuffle pass. And like it happened last year, I think against the Dolphins, and then they fumbled it, and it all went. But it was in theory, it was an interesting play. I think McDaniels brings a decent level of knowledge, creativity. I know your guy Kendrick Bourne is super stoked to have him back. Had his best year as a Patriot under McDaniels. He knows the system, and the real question is, will Mike Vrabel be involved in this? Will he kind of let McDaniels do his thing? I'm very curious to see how Vrabel handles it in terms of, I want control. Do I trust McDaniels enough? That I don't know, and time will tell on that one. I also don't know offensive coordinators around. I couldn't name you every offensive coordinator in the NFL right now, nor could I know what kind of play scheme they run, what kind of weapons they have. I feel like it's a highly specialized position that's kind of dependent on the weapons you have as well. So the devil do you know? I think one of the reasons that we like Vrabel is because he's a proven head coach versus Ben Johnson, who was an unknown as a head coach. I don't think McDaniels will do a bad job. He can't be worse than he was before. And I think it's going to be a good thing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, I think fundamentally it's one of those, that Family Guy joke. It's like, do you want the mystery box or do you want a boat? And he's like, well, I want the mystery box because it could be anything. It could even be a boat. And it's one where it's like, okay, well then Josh McDaniels, that's your threshold. What is your likelihood that whoever you're going to hire is better than Josh McDaniels? And if you think that he is truly that top 8 offensive coordinator, what are you trying to go for then? Right? Like, unless you can just pull the actual offensive coordinator for one of those top 5 offenses, which you can't make that lateral move, you're not going to get them. And so I understand this move. It's a complete separation from what happened last year with first-time head coach, first-time offensive coordinator, first-time defensive coordinator. They are going for experience here. They are going for what you said, that proven track record, that higher floor, and just bringing a sense of respectability back to this team, as well as someone who, the big calling card for Josh McDaniels is that he is a game plan offensive coordinator. He will change it based off of who they are playing against, and that sort of creativity and knowledge of the opponent is something that has been so sorely missing since he left the team, because they just haven't had the ability to execute anything on offense since he left.
No, they have not. And even worse, Rich Hill, they've gotten worse on defense than Steve Belichick left. But there's a new defensive coordinator in town. Let's get to that on 4th down. But first, let's talk about Game Time. The best place to get tickets, gametime.co, is where you want to go to get tickets to the NFL playoff games this season. It is the best place to go because They have everything you need and nothing that you don't. My favorite feature, of course, is that all-in pricing. You toggle that feature, it shows a total up front with no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, curated deals make it easier than ever to find the best prices on great seats. Seat views before you buy means you can get a virtual shot of your view, make sure there are no columns in the way. And it's not just football, it's sports of all kinds, it's comedy, it's theater, you name it. Game Time has got it. And plus the lowest price guarantee, make sure Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. And your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time, and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Just download the app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Another guarantee for you, Rich Hill. I know exactly nothing about Tyrell Williams, defensive coordinator, other than he was the defensive line coach and assistant head coach with the Titans. And Vrabel probably brought him over because of that. He was with the Lions. They had a pretty decent defense, though you wouldn't tell based on the last performance in the playoffs. I got really nothing of note to add about Tyrell Williams, other than the fact that I'm excited to have him because he can't be worse than the Patriots were on defense last year. You got anything any light you can shed on this thing?
Yeah, I mean, he's someone that Vrabel has liked a lot. You know, he spent a lot of time with Vrabel when he was with the Titans, was eventually assistant head coach. So he's someone that Vrabel thinks has leadership material. I think when you combine that with Josh McDaniels being a former head coach, it just speaks to they want to have just executive presences on both sides of the ball. I think that the Lions have been in a hard spot because Aiden Hutchinson suffered an injury at the beginning of the year, and that he's their star pass rusher. They have not had a lot of depth behind him, but where they did make it up is that 18 different players on the Lions recorded a sack of some sort last year. And that's a very high level. They were able to play with some level of creativity. And as a noted improvement is that you get players like Jeffrey Simmons, formerly on the Titans, currently on the Titans, but it's just like, I love this guy. You have just a bunch of defensive linemen who love his ability to lead. They love his messaging. I think he has a high attention to detail and fundamentals, which is what the defense was definitely missing. I think he is someone that if we were to say who can untap the potential of Christian Barmore the most, it is probably going to be this guy. And so I think that the Patriots have a lot of players who took a step back this past year relative to the previous year. And a lot of those players were in the defensive front seven. Tavai got worse. Jennings underperformed. Wise took a step back. White didn't develop as you would have liked. Godshaw was less productive. And so you have all of these players that are not as productive under this new defensive coordinator in Covington. Let's bring in someone who all the defensive linemen have loved, who's gotten a lot of really good top tier performance out of some other players. And I think that sets the Patriots defense up for a lot more success if they're better in the trenches.
I'll tell you something, Rich Hill. One thing that definitely stands out to me in the defensive and offensive coaching hires so far, there's also a new running backs coach in Tony Dews. It seems to me, and a new front office guy, Ryan Cowden, who's also the Titans director of player personnel before he was the vice president. One thing that's very clear to me, which I'm very happy about, I was very concerned when this whole coaching thing was happening, and they hired Vrabel pretty quickly. I was worried that the hires and decisions were going to be made by the Crafts, and I do not think that's the case. I think these are all Mike Vrabel hires. And that makes me happy because I feel like they might have erred a little bit and maybe getting their finger in the Gerard Mayo hiring process. Some of his guys he brought in, maybe they had a little more say than they should have. And I'd like to hope that maybe part of the negotiations when the head coaching job, like Vrabel's like, I'd love to come in here, but I'm buying the groceries, so I'm picking it. You know, I'm making the dinner, I'm buying the groceries, the old Bill Parcells quote. And it seems like Vrabel's building out the coaching staff he wants. And that should also help with the overall cohesion. So I think overall this is a lot of reason to be excited about next year with this coaching staff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, all the pieces are way better than they were last year, right? I mean, I gave my conspiracy theory hypothesis last week on just like they did zero from an investment perspective. They're getting a lot of proven people that I think that Ramondre Stevenson should be excited. I'm very curious to see who they're going to land for offensive line coach, because I think that will be the most important next decision for Vrabel. But I completely agree with you. It seems like Vrabel has been able to make this what he wants from a hand-picked perspective. Obviously, I'm sure all of it does have the Kraft's blessing from the onset, but I feel so much better about the leadership that's in position at this point in time, about the proven track record that's currently in position at this point in time, and the expected development, which was obviously the biggest glaring thing missing from the Patriots for the past couple of years, but in particular last year, is that players were not getting better. And what you have are a bunch of coaches who have shown that they can get a lot and possibly the best possible performances out of players who might play worse in a different environment.
For sure. It sucks that we're sitting here on championship weekend talking about a whole new coaching staff, but such is our reality, and nothing you can do about it. But again, we had enough success. I guess we can have these conversations for a little while before. But again, I think that I don't want to get way ahead of myself because we haven't even finished this season yet. But I do think the Patriots can make the playoffs next year. I think that's not an unreasonable expectation. Even with this roster, they have a crappy schedule, and if they can just turn a couple of things around, I'm excited about it. I don't know, but that's kind of all I got for you today, Rich. Anything you want to talk about?
No, I think we'll see each other next time once the Patriots coaching staff gets a little bit more fleshed out. We'll see if more people join after more teams get eliminated. Be curious to see how that plays out. But this is just the start of what we have to look forward to with 2025, getting the people, driving the bus. You want the right drivers, and then you're going to get the right passengers and the right people that'll help move that bus forward during free agency, the draft, etc. And we'll know more about what they'll be looking for in the coming weeks.
Yes,
so, Alec,
Rich. No, that'll do it for me.
All right. Well, until next time, you have a good one.
You too, buddy. See you.